Welcome back. Wanted to do really kind of a short video that is a response that, boy, one of my more popular videos, I think it's the second most in terms of views, is the video that I did that is how does leasing work? And it's the one where I break down my entire settlement. And there's a couple hundred comments on that video. And probably the most commented item on there is something that kind of makes me laugh. But it's also something that honestly, and I'll let you know, it's my fault. There's something that I kind of missed fully explaining. So I want to clarify tank washes. And every time this comment comes up, and it came up a couple of days ago, it just makes me chuckle because the thought of it just is absurd to me. But the tank wash problem in that video is that if you go and watch it, and I'll put a link to it in the description, I go through revenue and I go through all of the trip revenue, and then I go to reimbursements, which is part of revenue. And all the tank washes are listed under reimbursement. When I start talking about deductions, I don't mention that tank washes are under deductions. So that's the part that's my fault. And I don't clarify how tank washes work as far as how Prime goes. So because I note that they're reimbursing me for tank washes, it's left to the imagination that I am paying out of my own pocket for tank washes, and then Prime is maybe reimbursing me for that. And so when I say I made $1,200 in a given week and there's $1,000 worth of tank washes, excuse me, there's the thought that, okay, you only made $250 in a given week. So, very quickly, to recap that video, I had $3,200-ish in truck revenue from trips that I did. I had another $1,000 in reimbursements for tank washes. So I ended up with about $4,200 in truck revenue. Then I went through the deductions, and off the top of my head, it was $29, something like that, $2,900 in deductions. Well, I went through and I talked about how there were permits and there was, you know, insurance, and there was all that. And then I talked about that there was the truck payment, the lease payment. Then I talked about the fact that there was fuel. Well, in with the fuel, and I didn't specify, there was deductions for the tank washes. Tank washes work like this. They're on a PO system, purchase order system. Depending on what tank wash you go to, if it's a place like Decatur Clean, I'm sitting at the Prime Terminal in Decatur, Indiana right now. Many other of our high volume tank washes that Prime utilizes, they have a standing system where they can request a purchase order from Prime without any intervention from the driver. There are some of the smaller tank washes that we go to that don't have as much volume of traffic, where the driver has to call in, and it's the fuel desk who generates the purchase orders. And the driver has to call in, request a purchase order for a tank wash. Prime will generate a purchase order, give you that number. You have to supply that to the tank wash. For Prime's accounting purposes, they're going to assign everything associated with a given trip. So the trip that I did today, Decatur to Chelsea, Michigan, and back to Decatur, has a trip number in Prime system. It's just a number that Prime has associated with this trip. Everything that's billed to this trip goes underneath that trip number. If I purchase fuel, it's going to go and be billed to this trip number. Now, my truck is assigned to a trip number. If it's a tanker account and it's a tanker trip number, there's a tank wash associated with that trip number. So the trailer that I hauled up and brought back was washed prior to going to Chelsea, Michigan. And I have the wash ticket. Now, the wash ticket, as I've talked about before, does a couple of things. It lets the customer know that it's, you know, been properly cleaned, the procedures have all been done. But it also is a bill. It functions as a bill that they're going to pay for the tank wash. So they're going to pay Prime the $175, the $200, the whatever it costs. Let's just throw $175 out because that's what Decatur Clean charges. So they're going to pay $175 to Prime for that tank wash. They're going to associate that $175 with that trip ticket, the trip number that I was talking about before. Now, that revenue all gets put under that trip number. For Prime's accounting purposes, they're going to deduct the cost and they're going to put all the money into the pool that's associated with this trip. So when the customer pays Prime, it goes under this trip number. They're going to deduct the $175 from this pool. So they're going to charge, because it's got my truck number associated with it, the $175 out of that pool of money. And then that reimbursement section that I talked about, Prime's going to kick the $175 that they get from the company in Chelsea, Michigan, back into my truck. And that is instantaneous. That is not, well, we need to wait for the company in Chelsea to pay us for the truck wash. And that's how it works with Prime for paying anyway. And it may be quarterly, it may be monthly, it depends on the customer that they deal with. If they bill, and I talked about it's Tuesday to Tuesday, if you run a load on Tuesday, Prime's not going to have been paid by the given customer by Tuesday at 4 o'clock. You're still going to get paid for running that load. As an example, I'm recording this on a Tuesday. It's currently noon on Tuesday. They're not going to be paid by the customer in Chelsea, Michigan by 4 o'clock today, but I'm still going to be paid for it. They've also submitted that tank wash. And similar situation, there's a purchase order associated with that. They're going to take the $175 off of my truck because it's associated with that trip ticket, trip number, and Prime immediately reimburses me the $175. So the thing that makes me laugh is people look at, I talk about that I made $1,200 some in that given week. They talk about the, they hear me talk about the reimbursement of about $1,000 worth of tank washes. And the assumption is, well, you only made $250 rather than having made $1,250 in that given week. The thing that makes me laugh is that video is at this point 3 years old and I'm still working at Prime. The thing that makes me laugh is that I would put out a video that implies I only make $250 a week. Not a chance. I wouldn't be encouraging people to come to this company if that were the case. Second of all, I have never paid cash in my 4 year, I'm coming up on 4 years in January of coming to Prime. Never in my life have I paid cash for a tank wash. Not once. And the comments, and you can read through, like I said, there's 200 some comments. There's several that talk about, well, you only made $250. I'll tell you what, if you've worked at Prime in the tanker division and paid cash for a tank wash and haven't been reimbursed for it, go ahead. I love to hear a comment talking about how that's the case, because so many of the comments on that video are from people that aren't from Prime telling me how much money I made that particular week. If I was only making $250 a week, there's not a chance I would be here 4 years later, almost 4 years later. You can make, my daughter's 17, she makes more than that She used to work at McDonald's and made more than that in a given week. And now she works in the healthcare field and makes more than that. I wouldn't be doing this for the hours that I do this if that were the case. So it makes me laugh, but at the same time, here we are 3 years later, and I'm still getting that exact question. It just came up, like I said, last week. So it's kind of funny, but at the same time, it's something that I really felt needed to be clarified, because it does come up so often. You do not pay for tank washes. Money never comes out of your hands or your account. Now, there is a video that I did do about understanding your settlement, and I'm not going to say that mistakes aren't made in your settlement where you're reimbursed for 5 and they only deduct 4, or vice versa. And that's up to you to make sure that your deductions equal the same number that you're reimbursed for. And I'm not saying that that's never happened where there's a different number. And it's up to you to talk to your payroll person to make sure that if a mistake does happen, you get to the bottom of it and it's made right. And every single time there has been a mistake made in payroll, it's been made right the following week. So there you go. Just a little clarification on that. I just, like I said, I find it humorous that folks would think that I would work here for $250 a week. That is absolutely not at all the case. And that just kind of explains how the tank washes do work at Prime. Again, I'll put a link to that video in the description. I'm going to put this video in that description so folks understand and maybe get a better idea of how that works. And I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. If you want to come to Prime, click on the link. Takes you right to the application. Helps you out a little bit there. And thanks for watching.